Chicago to the Nation of Islam's annual Savior's Day Convention. At this convention, she saw and heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak. For 5 days she was gone. And when she came back, she was more enthused and committed than she was before. We did miss her absence, and our conscience would not allow us to reject her invitation anymore after she returned, because we were so happy to see her, we just didn't have the heart to reject any of her invitations. So in the first week of March 1956, my mother informed us that Minister Malcolm was coming back to Hartford, Connecticut, and would we promise her that we would come. We kept our promise, we made our mother happy, and we made ourselves happy too by keeping that promise. We went to the meeting that night at the North End Community Center in Hartford, Connecticut. They had grown out of the house before any of my mother's children could get there. They had grown out of the house and into an address. That night, after Malcolm spoke, he was so overwhelming in what he was saying. And what he was saying penetrated to the bone. I was the first one that stood up when Minister Malcolm asked the first timers to stand. And I was the first in line when Minister Malcolm asked those who wanted to accept to follow the brother to the secretary for further information. And on April the 6th, 1956, I received my answer back from the National Laborers that my letter of application was accepted, and I should go to the secretary and get the number of my ex.
Yes, sir.
I was 24 years old. I had a profession. I had a wife. Had a son. Had a new car. And I was saving to build a house. I bought to buy a house. When I shared with Imam Deen Mohammed something of my mother's active life, he said to me that she was the pillar of support for the family, similar to the base of the column that upholds the center post of a big tent. He said that there is a name that I am thinking of that represents all of that, and that name is Amida. And I am suggesting that you tell her that she should call herself and introduce herself to her new acquaintances as Amida, Amida Hasan, which represents the strength and the support that a family needs, because wherever my mother went, she took her family with her. When she went into the Moorish and the Magaga movement, what family that was born at that time, she took them with her. When she became a Moorish American, the family members, she took with her to the Moorish Science Temple. I was one of the ones who used to wear a red cap there. And the boys who used to see me going back and forth with my little red fez, they used to, you know how little boys do. They were my peers, and they used to pressure me and talk about me and kid me and joke me and call me red cap. But it didn't matter, because I was going somewhere where I was learning something. Imam Muhammad had never met my mother, but he knew that she was a great supporter of his father, and that she had made the transition to his leadership. And my conclusion for this first part, this is a two-part story. The first 30 minutes I just finished. I just got to sniffing and said I have 5 more minutes, so I can't finish the second part. But I can tell you what the second part consisted of. It consisted of how a temple got started.
Yes, sir.
How a temple got started. See, we didn't start a temple and gather rocks and stones to throw at other temples.
Come on, man.
We came from one temple, trying to set up another temple in a place where no one was. But we didn't set it up in opposition to someone else. Not like it is today. Today, people set up houses in opposition to other houses. That's not Islam. That's not Islamic. We had more Islamic meeting then than we have now. When we set up a temple then, we went back to the house where we received our first learning, our first message, and asked them for their support in building that temple, and we got their support. We did not throw stones at them. They did not throw stones at us. They were supporting what we were doing because this was strengthening and building the nation of Islam. That was the cause. The cause was not the individual. The cause was not the personality. The cause was to build the nation of Islam. And if we had not built the nation of Islam, there would not have been a platform for Imam Deen Mohammed to convert people to universal Islam in 1907. So I'll leave that part. The first time I met then Minister Wallace D. Muhammad was in 1958. I had seen him at the 1957 Savior's Day Convention, and at that time he was managing Temple No. 2 restaurant and opening the Savior's Day meeting for his father, but I had not met him. He was 22 years old at the time, and he was opening up the convention. This was the first time we was at the church. The 56 was the last time we were in 5335 South Greenwood, the old University of Islam building, for our Savior's Day meeting. Then in 1957, we were in the church. And we grew out of the church that first year and went into one of those convention halls in another part of the city. But I had not met Imam Mohammed. I had only seen him. But I met him in 1958 under these circumstances. In 1958, he was on a speaking tour that started in Boston, Massachusetts, continued on to Springfield, Massachusetts, then Hartford, Connecticut, and then Harlem, New York, and finally to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he was to become the new minister there in Philadelphia. Accompanying him on his speaking trip was Minister Malcolm X from Temple No. 7 in New York, Supreme Captain Raymond Sharif, and the National MGT Captain, Abdul Sharif. Now you know all of these people. Minister Malcolm, guess what? Minister Malcolm opened up each meeting and introduced Imam Mohammed, or Minister Mohammed, as a keynote speaker. I had made FY captain by this time, and I accompanied the group throughout their tour with a few selected security-minded brothers. Muhammad's Temple No. 14, Hartford, Connecticut, was the last stop on Minister Muhammad's tour before leaving for Muhammad's Temple No. 7, Harlem, New York, where he was to teach on Sunday before taking his position in New York or in Philadelphia. Dear believers, there is specific plan and methodology on how a temple or mosque is started. And it is not in opposition to any